Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Good evening to the Bethany family and the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good evening to everyone.
And want you to, whatever you all say, share, press the
Yeah.
share button. Share,
Yep.
start a watch party, do whatever you all
A
do.
watch party. So once you get in the room,
Mm-hmm.
like, share, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. That's a language I don't speak. So I just listen.
Yes.
I just listen.
Good
Good.
evening.
Yeah.
Welcome, Keisha Bryant.
Hi, Keisha. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Very good to have you
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, everyone. This is our part 2 of our Power of Habits little series that we're doing. So please
Mm-hmm.
share as you're getting on.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have questions already, especially after our last discussion, then go ahead and leave them in the comments. You might as well go
Mm-hmm.
on ahead and leave them while we're waiting for others to join in.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That last discussion I think went really well.
it
I
really
enjoyed it.
did. I
I
really
enjoyed
enjoyed
it.
it.
I
Yeah,
did. I did. And it's those
I
things that
did.
you don't think about all the
Mm-hmm.
time because they're
Mm-hmm.
habit. Because they're
There
habit.
it That's so true. Like you don't even think about it. The stuff you do every day that's either healthy or unhealthy because it's a
Yeah,
habit. Because you
it's a
just do
habit.
it.
You go on automatic pilot and you're like, okay, what just happened?
Oh my gosh, I have a good example of that. I usually take the kids to church to do their schoolwork
Mhm.
because they're still doing school remotely. So they just go up in the classroom. And yesterday I drove right past the church. And the kids were in the back like where are we going? I thought we were going to church. And I just kept on driving. Like I was going to my office. And so it's
Yep,
like it's something about things that are
I've done
ingrained
that.
in you subconsciously. That's a habit that you just
Yep.
do
And
automatically.
and sometimes you don't know how you get from point A to point B. Like,
Yep.
okay, it's like you
I
go on
know I got
automatic
here,
pilot. Thank God I got here safely.
but I was on autopilot. Like you're like,
I did that one time when Maya was young. I forgot to drop off at daycare. I drove to work and I'm like, oh man, you're still in the back seat.
oh
So
Lord
yeah,
Jesus.
so those habits are powerful, powerful.
Absolutely
And if
powerful.
and if you don't pay attention to it before you know it, you don't know. You're just doing all kinds of
Just
things.
all kinds of stuff.
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
Pastor Grace, good to see you. Hi, Pastor
Hi, Pastor.
Corey.
Hi,
Hi,
Pastor.
Pastor Grace.
Nice to
I
have
see you.
you.
Hi, Anjanette. Sister Medley, Sister Patricia. Hi, Sid.
Hmm.
Uh, oh, you missed the last one. You can always go back and tune into the last one if you want to catch up
Hmm.
on the part 1 of our Power of
Hmm.
Habit series. It was a
Hmm.
really, really good discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
they have. Sid said the new cars have alarms that someone is in the back seat. They need
Real?
that.
Oh, they need that. That's when yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they need that. And I didn't. Let me straighten that up. I didn't leave her in the car because Bishop be like, "Oh, Sister LaBoo, you're going to sit down." I didn't leave her. I just drove to work and I just went on automatic pilot. I had a meeting to get to, so my brain was
Mm-hmm.
already racing about the meet. And I got to work
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I forgot to drop you off. So I had to go back
Mm-hmm.
and drop her back off. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
But you're right. That sensor is good because I think we get so busy
Mm-hmm.
and so preoccupied with things that we
Mm-hmm.
forget. And then,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I think some parents have just forgotten and just left
Yeah.
the kids in the car.
It's
So we
so
don't want to do that.
unfortunate. Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
Yeah. So are you all ready to jump into this discussion? I'm so honored to have Deacon Andrea
Oh,
LeBou with me today as we're talking about our part 2 of the power of habits. Last time
mhm,
we had an awesome discussion. We talked about the spiritual perspective
mhm,
and with Pastor Wendell Jones. Um, and we just had an awesome opportunity to dig into how habits form our lives and how to make better choices with
mhm.
some of the things that we all need to correct as far as some unhealthy habits.
Yeah.
So we're going to get your
Mm,
questions today and dig in a
mm,
little bit further into the discussion.
Yeah.
So how do
Mhm.
we build new habits? So let's talk about that, because guess what? As things are winding down in this pandemic, so we think it's kind
Yeah,
of winding down.
so we think.
So we think
Yeah.
it's kind of
Mhm.
winding down. People are going back into what they consider either a new normal
Mhm.
or what was normal for them before.
Mhm.
I think the danger of that is some people are so quick to get back to their life that
Yeah.
we might be losing sight of what things we should have been trying to do during this time.
Right.
So that
Right.
I really think it's important for us to go into a new normal. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if you come out of this without um, really establishing some new
Yeah.
productive habits,
Yeah.
then this season was kind of a
Yeah.
waste for
Yeah.
you. So
You,
I think it's
you Yeah. And I was
yeah.
saying previously in one of these sessions or wherever I was talking,
Mm-hmm.
it was almost if God he pressed well, in the old days, you had a reset button on a VCR. It's
Mm-hmm.
like he pressed the reset button and gave us
Mm-hmm.
all an opportunity to reset,
Mm-hmm.
So even if we don't come out with something new,
Mm-hmm.
it gave us an opportunity to be introspective and
Right.
learn new things about ourselves, because I know people are carrying guilt because they didn't write the book, they didn't do all
Right.
this great stuff, and they're like, okay, can I just have a few more months to?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
everything has a purpose. Every
Absolutely.
everything has a purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
so even in this, we
Mm-hmm.
don't want to fall into the trap of saying I didn't do something, feel bad
Mm-hmm.
about myself, and develop a negative habit.
Right,
Yep.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And I think you're bringing up a good point about the difference between goals and habits,
Yep.
right? So a lot of people, when the pandemic first hit, they were really like, I can start working on my goal, right?
Mhm.
But in order to be successful in meeting any goal, you have to have healthy habits.
Mhm.
Because in order to get to the end, you
Yeah.
have to be consistent with
Yeah.
something that is productive. And a
Yeah.
lot of us have big dreams, big goals, things that we want to accomplish, but the discipline to get that is what is required. And some
Yeah.
of us, we just want to get there, especially with the
Yeah.
social media generation. Like, how do I get that?
Yeah.
Just tell me what to do to get that, right? How do I get what she got,
Yeah.
right?
Skip the work and the
Skip the
process.
word, right?
Just give me the product. That's all.
Right. But the habits is
Yeah.
all of the work and the steps that it takes that you have to do consistently in order to meet that goal.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, some of us have to be more disciplined and take the time necessary to really invest in ourselves. And this season gave us an opportunity to do that, to
Yeah.
really take a step back and make some investments into ourselves, to recognize what we need to work on as far as our physical health, our emotional health,
Yeah.
and all of that, so that I don't get the goal and then sabotage it. Because that's what happens a lot of times. Okay, I'm here, but I didn't do the necessary work to know how to maintain it now that I'm here.
Right. Right.
And
And
that's a dangerous place to be.
it is very dangerous. And I think it goes back to how we started the discussion is
Mm-hmm.
first not being on automatic pilot,
Mm-hmm.
because once you take yourself off automatic, you begin to think and feel differently,
Right.
which is it can be a good thing, but a not so feel good thing, because it can
Mm-hmm.
force us to feel things that we didn't want to feel,
Right.
or experience things that we didn't want to experience, or just face things in our own lives that we just didn't want to. So sometimes that automatic pilot habitual thing is a protective thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can be protective,
Absolutely.
and we've said this before. It's you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You have to acknowledge the positive habits and the not so positive habits, and those in
Mm-hmm.
between, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And one thing that I've been sharing with my clients a lot lately too is how to manage disappointment. Right,
Oh,
when you're working towards some things and it doesn't seem to be working out the way
mhm.
that you thought it was going to work out.
Yeah.
And we talk about how that disappointment leads to discouragement, and you
Yep.
feel like, there was the point of me putting in all of this work for something that just doesn't seem to be getting me anywhere, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
how that discouragement brings up disillusionment. So the way that I would describe disillusionment is like that feeling that kids have when they first find out there's no Santa. right?
Wait,
It's
you mean there's no
like,
Santa?
you mean to tell me all this time that I thought these gifts that were dropped on my lap came from this fat jolly man that could get around the world in one night? And you mean to tell me all the time it was my mom that was bringing the gifts over to the house? It's like a wake-up call that everything that you thought the world was is not as it appeared to be.
Right.
And then you have to realize that, oh, I thought that to get there, all I had to do was this. Right. And then when you realize it takes more work than you thought, some people are really ready to quit. Right. Yeah. And it brings up.
Well, I think what happens, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I think it brings up those, because I'm gonna finish your sentence.
Yeah, go ahead.
It brings up those feelings of inadequacies.
Yes, Sister LaBoo.
And those inadequacies are sometimes very difficult to face.
Right.
And all that's connected to disappointment, and ultimately what I end up being disappointed in, I end up being disappointed in myself. And it's fun. I was having a conversation with a young lady today that, we all experience that. We all experience that. We're not verbal about it though. We don't share when we feel disappointed in ourselves and sometimes the spiral that can put us in.
Absolutely.
And because it can put you in a spiral, and faith will ground you and pull you out. And then sometimes friends have to pull you out.
Right.
But it can lead in a very negative. I'm sorry, my husband's too funny. That's my house.
We all family. We family.
That's my house. Okay. But we have to be aware that, first of all, we all go through this.
Yes.
We all go through disappointments. We all go through those things of what we feel missing the mark, and we feel like we haven't accomplished what we want to accomplish. And then we start comparing ourselves. And then once again, some of those positive and negative habits start coming out, because then you throw up your hands and go, why bother?
Why bother?
Why bother? Why bother? So, I want to be encouraging to people that if you feel that, A, you're not alone. We all go there. And B, there's a way out of it. There's a way out of it.
Yeah, and you're right. It's something that all of us experience, and you know people like this that you hear all the time who have reached that point of just being like, you know what, it's fine. Like, it didn't work out for me, and they start showing that they're giving up. Think about it. All of the coworkers who you might ask, what happened to you and your photography? Like I used to do that, but then I got married, I had the kids, and I kind of just moved on. I didn't have the time anymore. And what happened to you going back to school? Oh, child, I can't do that now. Like, I'm too old. And people start to like give up on those goals because they got discouraged somewhere along the line. They realize maybe this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be, or it didn't happen at the time I thought it was supposed to happen. And then we get discouraged, right? That's where a lot of people too start to feel the sadness and the anxiety. A lot of depression and anxiety stem from that, the feelings of inadequacy or being overwhelmed or worrying about the future and worrying about things that they can't control, and then overthinking things that have happened in their history and thinking that somehow is going to disrupt my ability to do what I want to do. And you spoke a lot about that, Sister LaBoo. I think we did last time too, about how our histories play such a big role, and how our parents, may have played a role in us feeling a lot of that discouragement about our own future.
And that's that stuff that we don't know. We do. Why am I having a reaction to this? Because somebody's wearing the color pink. What's happening? So and that's what I think, we've had the opportunity to do, is be introspective about those type of things and really start to learn what our imprints are. This is not an opportunity to blame those who've imprinted us, but to take responsibility for the imprint and either moving it one way or the other. One thing that I've personally had to learn is that just because you're on a different path, it doesn't mean it's the wrong path. Right, exactly. So it's just a different way of getting to a destination, and life does that to us. Like you said, You got kids, things happen, the money flow one time and it's not flowing in. So things happen, things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
just going back to your point about developing healthy habits, it's work to do that. It's
Mm-hmm.
work. It is work to do that. It takes
Mm-hmm.
time to develop a healthy habit. It takes time to really, and here's the key, what I think the key, invest in yourself enough
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
follow through with a habit that you don't want to do. As
Absolutely. Yep.
Mhm.
And I saw Sid's comment too, and I think this season is showing a lot of us that some of the things we expected to happen during this time when it seems like money is not where it should be and the job situation changes suddenly, then we feel like, what the
Yep.
heck? Everything that I've been working hard for seems to be
Yep.
in somebody else's control,
Yeah.
right? And then we start to lose our kind of our footing a little bit. We
Mhm.
start to become undone and have a lot of anxiety about, now what do I do when I feel like
Mhm.
everything that I'm working towards and all the effort that I'm putting into maintaining my finances, to taking care of my family, to working hard on the job is snatched up from underneath me.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a really, really hard place for I think a lot of us to be in. And this season has revealed that there's a lot of things that are not in our control.
Mhm.
That's when it's so important to put our trust in God and also remember that small change is change. So
Mhm.
anything that you can do to work towards rebuilding or
Right.
reestablishing and being flexible will take you a long way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of us have to learn to be flexible, especially
Yeah.
right now. Be flexible with the
Yeah.
timing and how things are evolving because it's new for all of us, right?
Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah. And I think and I love that small change is still change. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause
Mm-hmm.
we don't give ourselves credit. We
Right.
don't give ourselves credit. And and I know in terms of dealing with clients and counseling, and I'm sure you've had this experience, sometimes if a person's really at a low point in their lives, it's an accomplishment just to get out of bed that day.
Right. Show yourself some grace.
Show yourself some grace,
Mm-hmm.
get out of the bed the next day. Get out of the
Mm-hmm.
bed and wash up the next day. Maybe get out
Mm-hmm.
of the bed, wash up and go for a walk the next day.
Right.
But we don't show ourselves grace. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
echo what you said. Small change is still change and
Right.
acknowledge that change. Acknowledge that
Absolutely.
change. And I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the things and if there's anything positive that's come out of this whole pandemic has been the creativity that's happened. And I've seen such
Mm-hmm.
resourcefulness in people. People who've had businesses, they've shut down, but they've totally redesigned the business, and
Right.
they're more successful now than ever,
Mm-hmm.
and than
Mm-hmm.
ever. So I think we have to, I guess, going back to what you were saying earlier, we have to not be afraid to break out of the box, for lack of a better word, or break out of
Mm-hmm.
the pattern that I set for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had this idea and concept of what my life was going to be like. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is just not where it is right now. Doesn't mean I stop. I move forward and develop a new vision.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, I see that so much. Even especially like women when we get of a certain age and we haven't been married and we haven't had children yet,
Yeah.
and or we haven't graduated at the time we were
Mhm.
supposed to graduate, or developed a business at the time we
Yeah.
thought we were going to do it. We start to succumb to the pressure of other people's perception of where we should be at a
Mhm.
certain time, or society stigma that, oh, you 40 and you haven't had kids yet, or
Mhm.
you're not married, and like
Yeah.
everybody gives you the look like,
What's
you
wrong
know,
with you?
like, and we start to, like succumb to that feeling of
Yeah.
it, of inadequacy, right? Like you
Yeah.
said, of well, maybe something is wrong with me.
Mhm.
Why am I behind the eight ball and everybody else has done it at this time and I'm so late and I haven't
Mhm.
accomplished that yet? But everybody's timing is different. We all have different things that we go through in life, different
Mhm.
experiences. We come from different paths. So
Mhm.
run the lane that is set before you.
Yep.
And if run the lane set before you, stay in your lane. If
Yeah.
this is the timing that God and the path that God has you
Mhm.
on, then
Mhm.
enjoy the ride. That's the best I can say, right?
Yeah, yep, that's true.
Enjoy the ride.
Yep, yep. And just and find joy in that. Sometimes, we get, and I'll speak for myself, we get so familiar with what we do all the time, it becomes comfortable.
Yeah.
which means it becomes sort of not exciting anymore because
Mm-hmm.
I do it every day. It's just nothing here, no big deal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the unknown can be exciting.
Yeah.
The challenge of the unknown can be exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It can be scary, but you can turn that into a learning experience. You can turn
Mm-hmm.
that into, okay, this is an opportunity for me to grow in a way that I've never imagined I would have to grow in.
Absolutely.
And when we start comparing ourselves to other people, and let's be honest, I think we all do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
we all do it from time to time. And I'll go, sit next to a car. I'm like, oh, I want that car.
He said, "Oh, my dream car."
My dream car. But it's okay. But you know what? Stay in your lane. Just to echo what you
Mm-hmm.
said, stay in the lane that God has prepared for you,
Mm-hmm.
and go back to trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Back to
Yep.
trust the process.
And I see Dana. So, like, good example is because we're doing the sugar detox. How many of you are doing the sugar detox? Right? Are you doing it? So we're doing the sugar
I go
detox,
halfway.
and like the struggle is super real. So
It is
like,
super duper real.
if you've never done it before, it is like such a change from the
Yeah.
norm and the
Yeah.
habits that we're used to, like checking labels, checking ingredients,
Yeah.
and what we used to just like, or what we're used to consuming. Now
Yeah.
we have to develop a new habit of, oh, let me be mindful,
Yeah.
and retrain my brain to think differently about the foods I'm eating and how much and what I'm putting in my body.
Right. Right.
When
And
we did, go
no,
ahead.
go. No, you go.
No, I was gonna say when we did it the last time, I had been, so speaking of like habits, right? So I was a sugar addict. All right. So let's just say, let me just put it out there, everybody, okay?
Put it out
I
there.
was addicted. Okay.
Confession is good for the soul.
I was addicted to candy corn and circus peanuts. Okay. Now let me tell you how bad it was. Okay. Y'all gonna laugh. Okay. Let me tell you how bad. Let me tell you how bad of a habit this was. So Pastor Nick be like, stop eating all that sugar, okay? So I would buy a bag of candy corn, but I would leave it in my car. So then I would eat it in the car, and then I would go in the house. Now this is how bad it was. So I would go in the house. I'm like, hey babe, it'd be in my car. So then I would have my slippers on, night. My kids call it night clothes, right? I have my night clothes on, and he'd be at church, and I'd be like sitting in the house like,
Jonesing.
It could be 100. It could be below zero outside. I would be like, zip up my coat on, be like, in the snow, to go in the car, put some on my hands and stick it in my coat pocket and go back in the house. Okay. Go back in the house, right? So, but what had happened is, because I had this sugar habit with sugar, I noticed that I was in a brain fog, and I was having some physical symptoms, and I had a little bit of a scare where my hemoglobin levels were off.
Okay.
And I had to see a hematologist, and they had to run blood work. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done to my body?
Yeah.
Right. And so I was in all kind of pain. I was forgetful, and I was tired all the time. And my nutritionist said, girl, it is your diet. You are malnourished.
Wow.
And I said, what do you mean malnourished? And she says, nothing you put in your body is feeding your body.
Wow.
And I had messed up my thyroid. I had messed up
Yeah.
all kinds of vital organs in my body from sugar, y'all. Sugar.
Yeah.
And so I did the detox the first time, and she gave us, she let us know what our tell was, which is how you can tell your body, how your body responds to sugar. So she put after we did the sugar detox, she put a little piece of ginger candy on my tongue, and I thought I was going to faint.
Really? Wow.
She came back, she said, sit in the chair, don't move. And she said, just put it on your tongue. I put it on my tongue. She walked back, and I was like,
wow.
She was like, so she asked me, who in your family has type 2 diabetes?
Whoa. Wow.
And I said, a bunch of people on my dad's side. Yeah. And she says, you just added 20 years to your life by doing the sugar detox.
Wow.
So habits are so important.
Yeah. And you didn't realize that until you went through it. And so we don't know how do I put this? The level or the size or the importance of that habit in our life until we do something different. Because you didn't
Right.
know that. Wow, that's
Yep.
amazing.
Yep.
So yes, the struggle is real.
The struggle is real. It
It
is
is
real.
real. It
But
is real.
some of those new habits that we have to develop are absolutely necessary, you know, and they require, if we could give some tools, one thing that may be required is a change in our environment, right? Change in environment. So for those that are doing a sugar detox, like it might mean removing some things out of the
Of
environment,
the
right?
house, pack the cookies up. Take the licorice and put it somewhere
Take
else.
the liquor, the Swedish fish, the candy corn, the chips. Move it out, right?
Move it out. Yep.
You know, it may mean changing your like for those that are really battling with sadness and depression, it means opening up the windows.
Yeah.
You know, let the air in, turn the lights on, stop sitting in the dark, right? And you know, give yourself a change in the atmosphere to help you play different music, right? Like listen to worship music, open up your Bible, turn on a sermon, you know, turn the lights on.
Yep. And
You know,
try something different. You know, I keep, and I see Charlotte has a question that I want us to get to about disappointment, but I keep a poem in my office, and it's basically about a hole in the sidewalk. It's just called A Hole in My Sidewalk, and it's about a person who keeps walking down the same sidewalk and fall into the same hole, and cannot figure it out. Why do I keep falling to the same hole? Until you change direction or go down a different sidewalk, you're going to fall into the same hole.
Right.
And you'll be free from that habit, but it takes effort to do that. And I go back to that. It takes an investment in ourselves. We have to. If I don't feel worthy enough for the investment, then I probably won't be successful in making that investment. We invest in everything and everybody else, but we don't invest in ourselves sometimes. We let life happen to us instead of us happening to our lives.
Right.
So,
Absolutely. Does somebody have a question you saw?
I saw Charlotte says something. Glad you mentioned. Okay, there it is.
Oh, okay. Glad you mentioned managing disappointment. What steps would you recommend to manage disappointment? Okay. So I know this sounds really like simple and cliche, right? But one way to manage disappointment, one of the best ways, is gratitude. I know it sounds like all that y'all talked about, and you're gonna say gratitude, like to manage this, but let me tell you why, okay? Because gratitude is the first step to being intentional. Being intentional about thinking differently. So when you're really caught in this negative cycle of disappointing and discouraging thoughts, you have to start with thinking differently, like reframe those negative thoughts into something more useful. So whenever I have people say, I'm just such an overthinker, like I think a lot, I just wish I wasn't such an overthinker. I tell them, we are thinkers. That's humanity. Like as humans, we are supposed to be thinkers. The problem is not whether or not you're an overthinker. The problem is whether or not those thoughts are useful. So if the thoughts are not useful and productive, then it's just going to spiral you out of control. So if your thoughts are leading you into negative relationships and negative habits, then they're not useful. But if your thoughts are leading you toward productivity and encouragement and ideas, then those thoughts are useful. So gratitude is one of those ways to trick your mind out of this negative cycle of just focusing on the negative, right? So point out things, and that's part of showing yourself grace. Pull out the things that you are really doing well, right? And have a gratitude list, because that will be really, really helpful in managing some of that disappointment. So being intentional. Oh, you can't hear me? You can, okay.
I can hear
so
you.
being intentional and showing gratitude, right, will be one of the best steps to start taking to manage some of those disappointments, and also acknowledgement.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. I think acknowledgement is important, you know, and I echo what you said. We sometimes make things in life very complicated,
Mm-hmm.
and starting a gratitude journal, just being thankful for one thing every day. What you're
Mm-hmm.
doing is you're replacing that negative thought with something positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, force it or fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
You may not feel it, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually, if you continue to repeat yourself, I have what I need. God will provide for me. I have, continually be thankful for the things around us
Mm-hmm.
that some people don't have.
Yeah.
I'm that person. I'm like, Jesus, I thank you for my pillow and my sheet and my blanket. Because it is such a sense of gratitude, because I work with so many who don't have
Right. Yeah.
who don't have the luxury of a sheet and a pillow
Mm-hmm.
and a place to lay their head. So I don't take it for granted. So
Mm-hmm.
changing that negative, or changing that disappointment into something that you're thankful for, and you have gratitude for. And then
Mm-hmm.
going back to the other point is figuring out the source of the disappointment.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
are we disappointed in the person, the place, or thing? Are we
Mm-hmm.
disappointed in ourselves for allowing that person, place, or thing to get to us and
Right.
affect us that way? So
Mm-hmm.
it becomes an opportunity for, once again, introspection,
Right.
and figure out, why am I really disappointed about this?
Mm-hmm.
What is this saying about me? They didn't
Mm-hmm.
invite me to go here. Are my feelings hurt because of this, or my feelings hurt because I really didn't want to go? Whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it takes thought. It takes thought. The most powerful muscle we have is the mind.
Mm-hmm.
That is the most, and the enemy knows that, and
Mm-hmm.
the enemy knows, once I can start tricking you into that disappointment loop, and you start feeling bad, and you're like, I should have done this. Start second guessing yourself. Once again, we start going for that spiral.
Mm-hmm.
We start spiraling again.
Mm-hmm.
So I will echo what you said in terms of dealing with disappointments. Replace the disappointment with gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out the source of the disappointment,
Disappointment.
and
Mm-hmm.
then move through it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Move through the disappointment.
Mm-hmm. And that takes practice. So,
Mhm.
sometimes when we're disappointed, it's so easy to stay stuck in that thought, right? But we do have to sometimes practice doing something differently. And that's a part of positive habits. Um, it's easier to be negative than it is to be positive, right? It takes more energy to think yourself out of a sunken place than it is to
Mhm.
just sit and wallow in self-pity and be and struggle with some of our negative thoughts, right? That's a little bit easier, actually, because it takes no
Mhm.
work to be negative
Yeah.
Nancy, right? But to be grateful takes a lot of intention. It takes practice. It
Yeah.
takes consistency of refuting those thoughts. And sometimes, let's be honest, that can be
Yeah.
exhausting,
Yeah. Oh my
right?
God, it's exhausting.
It can be exhausting to think negatively, but sometimes it's hard to always be the positive person too.
Mhm.
But it's
Yeah.
important to really
Mhm.
train yourself out of that negative thinking, right?
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
remember my sister went to when we were kids, she went to Africa. She was in Sierra Leone, and I forget
Mhm.
a couple of the other places that she went, and she was there for 2 to 3 weeks. And we were kids at the time that she went. She came home and she's just like, toilet paper. Oh my God. It was so she was like real syrup. And she was like, I was like, what? And she was like, there was no toilet paper. And she was like, there's no toilet paper. And
Yeah.
I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
things that like a 12-year-old came back,
Mhm.
grateful for, it just
Mhm.
brings things into perspective that some of the
Mhm.
things that we are disappointed about and complain about, there are people so much worse off. And just, showing gratitude and gratefulness for the small things that we
Yeah.
have takes us a
Absolutely.
long way,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. And that becomes a habit. And like you said, that becomes a habit of
Mm-hmm.
being grateful and
Mm-hmm.
attitude. So you can
Mm-hmm.
develop that, just as you develop the negative thinking, you develop that positive thinking with practice.
Mm-hmm.
And honest, sometimes, I've been at certain points in my life, I actually had to write things down. And I would get
Yeah.
up, okay, this is what I'm thankful for today,
Mm-hmm.
and write them out.
Mm-hmm.
And reflect and say, okay, well, maybe my life is not as bad as I thought it is, because
Mm-hmm.
look at all
Look
the
at all
good
these
stuff I
great
have going.
things.
Look at all the good stuff I have going on. Absolutely. Which is forming a new habit and forming
Right.
a different way of looking at life. It really is.
Yeah.
Really is.
And another thing that we can do when we're talking about establishing new habits is tell someone you trust about what you're trying to do that can hold you accountable, right? Because a lot of times, a lot of us are good starters, but not good finishers. And, we have great ideas, but we don't complete any of them. I saw Pastor Nick and Maya were doing the live on Monday for Maximize Monday. And Pastor Nick said, I need to finish my book. I think it was something he said. And Maya told him, put a date on it. And he said, you're right, I need to do that. So sometimes just sharing with someone what you're doing and having someone to keep you accountable, to tell someone. And that way they can hold you to the fire and say, did you finish it yet? Did you do it yet? Get on it. Get on it. Get on. You said you were going to do this last year. Let's do it. Put a date on it. Right. Let's see what you can do in 30 days. Come back to me and tell me what you've accomplished in 60 days. Yeah. And that helps you keep yourself grounded and accountable. And keep doing it.
And pick an accountability partner that can handle you when you get angry with them. Because you're going to want to tell them, mind your business.
Like, stop asking me. I said I was going to do it.
I didn't ask for all this. But that's the person who's going to lovingly encourage you,
Right.
And I don't know. I get uncomfortable. And it took me a minute to figure this out about myself. I get uncomfortable when I'm not completing something. It doesn't feel good for me. I always have like 9 bazillion things happening at one time. And sometimes it can get overwhelming. I'm like, okay, and Maya will tell you, I'll say I'm uncomfortable because I'm not finishing anything. So, and then when you finish, you go, oh, it's like a sense of relief.
Yes.
A sense of relief and an accomplishment. Okay, good. I did it. And, and one of the habits I have is that generally every night before I go to bed, I make a list of things to do. Part because I need to remember, but it also because I realize about that myself, I like to accomplish things and finish things. It's a sense of if I put 10 things on the list and I only get to 4, guess what? I can cross those 4 things off and say, look at Jesus. So you have to find, first of all, when we talked about dealing with disappointment and developing healthy habits, you have to find what works for you. Making a list for me makes me feel like I'm accomplishing something. Figure out who you are and put that practice and put that habit into place.
Absolutely. That was going to be, to piggyback off of that was going to be one of my other things on our list is just tracking. And that was, and you just said it, right? Tracking your habits and making sure that you have something there that lets you know what you've actually done. Because a lot of them say, oh, I'm doing better, but how do you know? How do you know? There's nothing to reference to tell you that you've made any strides, right? Unless you have something written down or something that says I've accomplished this, right? So maybe making a list is an important, and if you're struggling with a list, what can you do that shows what you've accomplished? Setting a date, setting a deadline of this is what I want to have done by this time. By next year, I want to have blah, 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 right? So that you know. Like I remember when we were opening up the daycare center for the church, I had no idea what I was doing, right? Like none. So I had to be very structured because now you're dealing with the state and children of what I needed to have done by when, right? So it was like, okay, let me go line by line and read every single word on this documentation that they're sending me. First, I'll do the life hazard certificate. Then I'll do this, and then I'll do that. And little by little, I was chipping away at it to the next thing you know, I had the keys, like,
wow.
and the license, and the state is coming out and approving. And it's like, how did I get there, right? From doing step by step by step. And so we have to, hi, Georgiana. We have to find some way to keep ourselves accountable and tracking our progress when we're talking about establishing new habits. Is so important, right?
And I think that accountability also comes with accomplishment. You know, there is a sense of, like I said, if I put 10 things on my list, I did 4. That's a sense of accomplishment for me that will encourage me to keep going. You know, and going back to what you talked about earlier, we become what I call a microwave society. You know, I want it fast, quick, and in a hurry. I want to press a button and have a 7-course meal in 7 minutes. Okay. You know, so we want our lives to be that way as well, you know, but it takes hard work. It takes discipline,
It
you know,
does.
and it takes failure sometimes.
Absolutely. Oh.
It takes failure sometimes. It's not the failure that's the issue. It's how we deal with failure becomes the issue. So
I feel like we need to talk about that a little bit.
Okay, let's stay on that one for just a little while longer.
Failure is so hard. It's just so hard especially when you've worked hard for something, or you're already kind of second guessing yourself and things are not working out the way that you thought. There's a lot of things that that we have to consider when failure happens, right? Is a lot of us question, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this then. But no, that doesn't mean that at all. You know, sometimes failure is just a learning curve. You know, it's a learning curve to teach us what to do differently the next time, and we should learn from them.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
And not get discouraged.
And I'm just saying, I was going to echo and not get discouraged. And stay. You know, I think I may have shared this with you before. I have a friend who's my sister's. A friend whose sister is like a multimillionaire, and I was over her house at one point, and I saw this like stack of business cards. I'm like, boy, that's a lot of people, you know. So I asked, I said, what are those cards? She said, those are all the businesses I started and failed.
Wow.
She said, and I keep them as a reminder for me that you cannot give up. You cannot give up. Yep. She did balloons. She did flowers. She hit tires, and that was it. And she became a multimillionaire for tires and selling tires and distributing tires and things like that.
Wow.
But what she realized about herself is that she was an entrepreneur.
Right.
That's who she was as a person. Now, whether she sold chicken or she sold balloons, she just
wanted to do it on her own.
Exactly. So don't get upset if that one business card doesn't work. Just keep on getting another business card.
Yep. And you watched The Food That Built America.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Oh my gosh. Milton Hersey, like to hear his story and how maniacal people that are successful are about not letting the failures stop them. And when you want to be successful, you have to be habitual about doing what it is that you love, regardless of how many setbacks you had. And some people are just built from a different cloth. They can fail, and just like, try again, keep going. And some of us are too quick and eager to give up. We were looking for a reason to give up. But to be successful at anything, I don't care if it's your weight loss journey, your business, your book, your podcast, whatever it is, you have to keep going. Absolutely. There will be failures. Absolutely. I mean, I watched that thing and I was like, Jesus.
I love that show. I do. I love that show. It just teaches that lesson. Yep. It teaches
really
that lesson. You can't stop. You can't stop, and you can't internalize it. You can't say, it's me. I did something wrong. Okay, well, here's the thing. You take every failure as a learning opportunity. You know, I tend to be of that mindset, you know, good and bad come to us for a reason. You know, and they are become life lessons that mold us in who God wants us to be. And until we get those messages and we get those lessons will come back to us. So even in a failure, what are you learning from this failure? It could be just how you learn how to deal with failure. You know, it could be just that simple. So I think Bishop said this one, there are no lost tears. Nothing is lost. Nothing is finite. It is just a stone to your next opportunity.
Absolutely. Yep. It can either be a stumbling block or a stepping stone.
Absolutely.
And we have to make it a stepping stone. Like, okay, I failed, I messed up. What have I learned from that? And how can I use that to take the next step forward? And you're so right, Sister Libu, you cannot internalize it. And a lot of us do. We take it as something that's wrong with me. I see, I can't do it. I knew I couldn't do it. Even my son, when they're doing, kids, they do this a lot when they're doing their schoolwork or when they're trying. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. Like try again. I can't. I tried already. I can't do
it. Wait, I'm having a flashback just having you talk about it.
I can't do it. I'm like, stop crying. I can't do it. And they think that something is wrong with them, right? And they take it so personally when they try something and it doesn't work out for them.
Yeah, and I've learned to ask a child a question, why do you think you can't do it?
Yeah.
I just don't know. Okay, then that's what we need to figure out, because you will run that tape in your head. I can't. And that will be the imprint, and never quite figure out why do I feel like I can't? Where did that come from? Where did that come from? And we all, our parents do and did the best that they could. And using your example of the Santa Claus, there's that moment that you realize, oh, your parent is just human.
Yeah, they're just human.
They're just human. Well, I know, whatever.
I thought they were heroes. Oh, I thought they were superheroes. I thought my dad was awesome, like Thor. And you're like, he's just a man. A boring old man.
Well, not your father.
No, not my daddy.
Not your dad. But we have that moment, whether it comes in our adulthood or when we're late teens, whenever we come to that moment in our lives that our parents were just human.
Right.
And doing the best they could with what they were given. So when we have an opportunity with our children to reshape and mold and go back and maybe correct some things that we inherited, or get to that question, why do you think you can't? Right. It might be because I feel I'm stupid. Okay, well, let's talk about that. And then as a parent, you have a little cheat sheet that says, okay, my child is thinking that they're not smart. So I have to do things to build up their self-esteem. I have to set up different things for them to make them feel good. I have a child who shall not be named because she's watching me right now. was challenged in math. Okay.
Me too. So I'll put it out there.
But in a different way, I would be sitting at the table, as that parent with the Fruit Loops, add the green Fruit Loops to the red Fruit Loops. What do you get? And she goes, oh, mommy, that looks like a horse. I'm like, no, we're not doing that right now.
We're not talking about that.
We're not. But I had to realize, she sees things in a different way. Because she the simple stuff may not get, but give her a long chemical equation, something with physics or something like that. And you sit there and go, okay, how did
you get that?
I'm a tell on her right now. She was probably a junior in high school or something like that. She's on the exercise bike. I hope I may have told the story already. She's on the exercise, little black and white composition book. And she's on the exercise bike and she's doing, I'm like, what are you doing? I'm calculating the amount of energy I'm using on the exercise bike. She's doing physics.
Oh my Lord.
Okay, but can't add the Fruit Loops. So I say that because children will often give us a snapshot of the messages they're receiving, and they may not be messages that they're receiving from home. They may be messages that they are putting on themselves by comparing themselves to other kids.
Absolutely.
And saying, well, this girl always gets it and I don't, so that means I'm stupid. So when you ask that child that question, why can't you do it? Why do you say you can't do it? Allow them the freedom to speak from their heart. Allow them the freedom to say, because I feel a certain way. So the goal is to deal with the feeling
Absolutely.
and not the statement behind. I feel like that's a circle going a long way around.
No, that was beautiful. Yeah. And you're so right. And the children, I think too, when they're really little, they're used to parents doing everything for them. And then when they reach a point where they have to do more on their own and figure it out, and they realize it's a little bit more challenging than they thought, it's easy to give up and want someone else to do it for you.
Right.
And it's something that, you're right, we have to teach our kids, early on, about continuing to try, when things don't look like you think it's supposed to look. Don't give up. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't internalize it. It just means that it takes more effort than you're used to giving it. And you have to keep applying yourself. You have to keep trying.
And you learn how you learn how your child learns. You have to learn their particular learning style. So I knew with my daughter, I did one way. I did with my son a certain way. And that's how you raise, I feel, a child into a person that feels self-assured, that won't necessarily fall into that spiral of something's wrong with me, know, particularly when you deal with a special needs child, the world will tell them something's wrong with you, as opposed to you just see things in a different way. And isn't it beautiful that we live in a world of variety? So you turn the challenge into triumph, particularly when you have a child that's struggling in that area.
Absolutely.
And help them learn the language, so it becomes a healthy habit for them as well throughout their lifetime.
And that way they continue it, and when they make a mistake or what they consider a failure, they don't just throw in the towel and give up. And that starts early, like that habit of being intentional about, okay, I gotta try again. That has to be deeply ingrained in us, or we'll become adults who are just quick to throw in the towel and give up because it's not ingrained in us. That habit of continuing to do more when you feel like I can't do it is an important lesson to learn early on.
And that's that introspective that we've been talking about, since we started, that this, we've had this opportunity, since we've had this reset opportunity to be introspective and figure out, where does some of this stuff come from? Who am I? How did I become this way? This is not the blame game. This is really just an opportunity for us to figure out, how do I develop a healthy habit? Why haven't I developed this healthy habit? And what can I do in my own internal thought processes to forgive, forget, move on, whatever I need to do to once again invest in myself enough to say that I can do it. And believe in yourself. Absolutely.
And lastly, I know we're getting ready to wrap up soon, but I think it's important to, and Sister Libu, you mentioned this, celebrate your successes. So any small triumphs is still a triumph. So make sure that you're celebrating the small steps that you're taking towards meeting your goal, right? So even if you like, oh my gosh, I went this whole week with no coffee. Right? Like, I'm on what is this, day 4? No coffee? I'm dying, man. I want my coffee so bad. I can't want my coffee so bad. But I'm so proud of myself for not giving in. Like, I so badly wanted to pour some creamer in my coffee. I was like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm committed to this. I'm gonna see it through. Every day I wake up in the morning and get through the day without coffee. I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. I did it.
That's good. That's
I did it. But we got no coffee, no creamer. And that's my lifeline, right? But something you said, Sister Labu, is don't never mind, I forgot. It was in it. I left it.
That's okay. I mean, I just went back to your coffee. I'm a black coffee drinker anyway, so that's for me. But I will say, like, you saw my husband go behind me back there, because he's not quite doing the sugar thing this week, so he went out and got a water ice. He asked, "Do you want one?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I don't want one.
No, I don't want a water ice."
But
yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't.
But so I will celebrate. You know what? That was one thing I said no to. And celebrate that and celebrate that. So
yep. Wow. I had a client who said to me, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to encourage myself. And I said, that's
Yeah.
because you haven't done it.
Mhm.
You know, your
Mhm.
habit is to think negatively.
Yeah.
So in order to overcome that, you have
Yeah.
to be intentional about celebrating the small
Absolutely.
things and let
Absolutely.
that become a new habit. And even though
Mhm.
it's difficult to do, you got to be intentional about doing
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
And once we start to do that, it opens us up to
Mhm.
receive more, because we're not
Mhm.
closing ourselves off to shrinking
Mhm.
back into
Yeah.
just this cycle of disappointment and shame and
Mhm.
rejection and
Mhm.
failure, because that is a rut we do not want to get stuck in.
Right.
There's
Right.
no way to really accomplish great things
Mhm.
in that
Mhm.
cycle of negativity and
Mhm.
pessimism
Mhm.
and gloom and doom,
Mhm.
self-sabotaging thoughts like that. Those are the things we have to break away from. In
Yeah.
order to do that, you really
Yeah.
got to be intentional about doing
Yeah.
that.
And develop
Yeah.
that habit of
Hmm.
walking in self-assurance. How many
Hmm.
times when somebody says, "Oh, you look nice," you go, "Oh, this old thing," or you start talking about, "I got it on sale." Learn to just say
Just
thank
say
you.
thank you. Hmm.
Learn,
Yeah.
and if somebody says you look nice, but I always use this example: if you're all dressed up and somebody, "Oh, you look nice, but your shoes are ugly," you miss all the other stuff. You go, "Well, what's wrong with my shoes?" We
Right.
miss all of
Right.
that. So my challenge to all of us who are trying to develop new, healthier, and I'm going to help, just different habits, spend some time complimenting yourself.
Oh yeah, that's hard. That's Lord.
It's hard. Okay, so we hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Spend some time complimenting yourself this week. You owe it to
Yeah.
yourself. You owe it
Hmm.
to yourself to do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Compliment yourself. Give yourself grace. We talked a lot about a lot of things today. Celebrating your accomplishments, changing your environment, working through those negative thoughts, showing gratitude, right?
Yeah.
Are important steps in going in the right direction and establishing new and healthy
Mhm.
habits,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Well, I had a great discussion today with you, Sister
Wow,
LaBelle. We
this
made
went really
it.
we made it. It went really fast.
We made it. So
It
listen,
went fast.
everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This is Mental Health Awareness Month too. Please don't forget that our church has a counseling center and we are booming. I'm so proud of our counseling center and the fact that we have people actually all across New Jersey and
Nice.
that are a part of our counseling center that are coming down from all over. And
Wow.
so it's not just Bethany members. We have kind of our doors have been opened, the walls have been expanded to seeing people that are not Bethany members, that are community members that are coming to the counseling center. So please give us a call. I think we can put the number in, but if you want to reach out to the counseling center this to continue the discussion with one of our therapists, if you need help working through negative thinking or anxiety or depression, or you want to work on establishing better habits, call the counseling center, talk to one of the therapists. And our phone number is 856-782-6748. That's how you can reach someone at the counseling center. 856-782-6748 if you want to reach the counseling center. And someone can speak with you if you need to talk to someone during this Mental Health Awareness Month.
Mhm.
Okay? So
Yay.
thank you so much, everybody. Thank you,
Yeah.
Deacon LeBou. We're
Oh,
praying
thank
for you
you.
all.
Oh, we appreciate
All
that.
right. I hope that you guys got some free therapy today. Okay. All right. The next one will call you. This is okay.
Oh,
And the number, I just want to correct it, 782-6748. Okay. So it
6748.
should be 6748. So definitely make sure that you call the counseling center. But we would love to hear from you.
Mhm.
And all right, you guys, thank you so much. Have a great, wonderful
Yes.
evening.
And
We'll talk
remember,
to you soon.
compliment yourself.
Yes, compliment,
Okay.
make that a daily habit.
Absolutely. Take care.